welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's African Queen Grace. I'm excited to be back. So today I'm going to talk about the 10 things you should do when traveling abroad for work. And these are just things that people sometimes take for granted. So for those experts who are looking to come into Kenya, or for the Kenyans who are looking to go abroad, there are different things that you should consider. And so I thought, you know what, let me just do the 10 things that I would normally do if I was going abroad to work. So the first thing is, as you're maybe applying for those jobs, as you're considering where you want to go, as you're being taken somewhere else for placement, because it happens nowadays, there are many companies that are global. The first thing you should consider when you're accepting their offer is the issue of security. How is the security in that country? How is the security in that location? What are some of the things you'd want to consider when you're going there, in terms of how do the police work? How would you get hold of them? So are there, numbers you want to have with you? Just to know how security works in that, not organization per se, but that country and that specific location. Because we know nowadays there's so many, kidnapping that happens. And when that happens, when you're in a foreign country, you can get, anxious. Your family will get anxious. People will just don't know what to do. So as you're making that decision to go somewhere for work abroad, that is something you specifically have to consider. So number one is security. Number two is travel documents. Some countries have specific requirements for those people who are going to work there. They might want you to apply for a work permit. You might want to show why you are coming into the country to work. Some countries are very liberal. You can apply for the work permit once you're in the country. Maybe they give you a window period of 2 weeks or even 1 month, just depending on the flexibility of their country laws. So those are some of the things you should know. Don't pack up your bags, go to a foreign country when you don't know what the legal requirements are. So make sure your work permits are there, your travel documents are there, like your passport is ready. If there's vaccines that are required, you need to have those ready. You need to have the jabs ready, because you don't want to reach at the airport when you're going through immigration and then you're being turned back for something very small that maybe in your country might have cost you less. But now, because you're doing it in a foreign country, you end up paying a lot of money. So number two is making sure you have the correct paperwork in terms of traveling and in terms of the work permit. If your organization is applying for a work permit on your behalf, you just need to make sure you have the letters ready. They should be able to coordinate for you. Do the follow-ups and don't leave things for granted. I know sometimes people get excited when they're traveling, when they're going for work abroad, but don't leave it to chance. Don't say, oh, I'm going to win my way when I reach at the airport. Make sure you have your travel documents ready. Then number three is necessary vaccinations and vaccines. Now, with the coronavirus pandemic, the different countries have come up with different requirements. Make sure that you go online, go to the embassy of that country where you're going to, and check what are the new requirements that have come up. Do they need an extra vaccine? Do they need a letter that shows that you're COVID-19 free? Now we even have specific dates. They say only a window period of 1 week should you travel, or 2 weeks should you travel. So those are some things you need to have in mind. Don't get a certificate too early on, then by the time you're traveling, it has already expired, and then it costs you the whole trip, or it causes a delay of maybe 1 month, 2 months. Those are things you can hinder if you prepare early. Then number four is contacts of the place you are going to. Sometimes we rely so much on technology, and we are like, oh, when I go there, I've already pinged them. I'll just, go Google online and they'll give me the location. But it's always good to have it written somewhere on paper, such that if your phone goes off, if you go, like this has happened many times to me when I've gone to a foreign country and my internet just wouldn't work. Even when I turn on the roaming, it's just not working until I literally go to the hotel and turn on the Wi-Fi. then it works. So you can imagine between the airport and the hotel, you need to find a way of communicating, or you need to find a way to get yourself there. So have your location written on a paper somewhere. So this location sometimes is also needed at the immigration when you're filling in where you're going. Have it written somewhere on paper so that in case technology fails you, you literally know who, you can be assisted to call. You know, this is the hotel I'm going to, or this is the location I should be going to, and somebody will help you. So I'll just recap the first four that we've talked about. The first one was security of the place, the country, the location where you're going to. Number two is make sure your work papers are correct or travel documents are intact. Number three is having the right vaccinations and injections beforehand and having the relevant documentation to, to confirm that you've done it. Then number four is making sure you have the contacts of the place where you're going to. If you're having a taxi person coming in, make sure that you kind of have an idea that, yes, someone is picking me up. So if you're delaying for too long, if you come out and you're not seeing your name on the placards, you can already call the company. They can be able to facilitate that. Then number five is the local language. You don't want to find yourself in a foreign country that you have no idea what language they talk about. So if you go to, France, there's French. If you go to maybe Germany, there's the local language. If you come to Kenya, of course, we speak English, but there are people who are synonymous to speak Kiswahili. So you need to know this country that I'm going to, what do they communicate in? Is it French? Is it English? Do I find people who can speak English? Do you need to have something translated on a paper somewhere so that if you show someone their local language, they can be able to give you help that you require? So find out what the local language of that country is, or the location where you're going to. Have simple things written out. For example, you can say, I need help, I need to get to the hotel, or I need a taxi, or can you help me call this number? At the airports, you'll always find people who can speak English, but as you venture out, you might not necessarily find that. So it's good to have, simple things written down so that in case you need someone to translate for you, they can be able to help. So know the local language of the place you're going to. Then number six is culture of the locals. Culture. When I talk about culture, it's interesting because people want to ignore, or they want to interpret. They want to interpret what they think the culture of the place where they're going to. Do your research well. There's a lot of information now online on what the culture of those specific places are. So just make sure you say, if you're going to, Nyanza, Kisumu in Kenya, I'm going to be there for 3 months, 6 months. What is their local culture? How do they dress? How do they carry themselves? If you probably are used to using some signs in your conversation, how would the locals find it? Some people find even swear words very offensive, but in another country, it's just a normal thing. So those are the things you need to look into so that you're not using a swear word that is totally offensive to that culture or to those people, but to you, it is normal. So find their culture, find out what they eat, find out how they dress, find out the weather of the place that you're going to, so that you're not putting on a totally short, completely short dress that if you step out in that, people, in the local area looking at you like, what's going on? In some countries, people even put on buibui, So you need to figure out what is the culture of the place where you're going to, so that you have an idea that when you're packing your suitcases, when you're, making sure that you have everything ready, you have that at the back of your mind. Sometimes when people go for work, they also go for leisure. So they go for trips. They want to enjoy themselves, visit the local sites and tourist locations. So it's good to balance the two, because if you're going for work, you're going to interact with people in a professional way. So find out how do people dress when they're going to work. Then when you go to leisure, when you have that extra hour or two, then you can dress however you wish, because then it's a leisure thing. You're just enjoying yourself. You're knowing the different destinations in the country. So you need to, find a niche for the two. Don't just carry, tourist clothes and that's what you want to do for work as well. Sometimes it just doesn't work. Then number 7 is emergency contacts. And when I talk about emergency contacts, is you need to have someone you can call when you're in trouble. Sometimes trouble finds you when you least expect. And if you're in a foreign country where you don't know who to reach out to, you don't know how to behave in that scenario. And when I talk about trouble, it can be anything at any time. If you find yourself in that situation, you should have some contact numbers that you've written down, that maybe you have in your purse or in your wallet or in your pocket, that you know that in case of anything, this is the person you can reach out to. So when I talk about emergency contacts, it could also be people who are back home, because sometimes things have happened to people, they've lost all their documents, passport, air tickets, and they just don't know where to go to. If you have the emergency contacts written down somewhere, you can be able to go back and quickly reach out to those people. Or if you're in trouble, let's say you disappear for even a week and you're in the hotel and the hotel goes to your room, they can be able to know who to contact when such a situation happens. So that is something people want to ignore. Some people want to always go incognito, but when trouble arises, that's when you're like, oh, I should have written it down. Oh, I should have done this. I should have notified these people. So it's just about you having the contact information in case of emergency, and also the people you're leaving behind having some kind of contact that they can reach out to when they're worried, when they've not heard from you for maybe 24 hours. They can reach out to that hotel, they can reach out to that manager, they can reach out to someone in that foreign country to follow up and find out what's going on. Is she okay? Maybe she's sick, maybe we've got food poisoning. Those are the contacts people need to give out so that at least there's someone else who knows what is going on with you. Number 8, this one I've touched a bit when I was talking about dress code. When you go to a foreign country, and most of the time when we go to, European countries where there is winter and snow, sometimes we don't have the heavy clothes. So you want to consider, or maybe carry some extra money so that when you reach, you can go shopping. Because one thing I realized is the coats that we have in Africa is not as heavy as what is required in the winter season. So if you shop in the foreign country where you've gone to, it's quite easier because then they have the correct fabrics, the correct knittings that is required for that weather. So consider the dress code as I had talked about. Number 9 is local embassy contacts for your country. I know this is something people want to ignore when they go to a foreign country. You're at the airport, it's stamped, you go in, you go for your tourist, you go for work. You don't even record yourself or register yourself with your embassy. Even when people go for education abroad, as students, they forget to register with their local embassies. I remember when the coronavirus pandemic happened and students now were forced to go back and register with their embassies. And you can just imagine when, for example, you're assuming the number of students you have in your foreign country is maybe 20, and all of a sudden you realize, oh my goodness, I have over 100 students. It's good to have yourself registered with the local embassy. Number 1, this is because if you're a student, there's some bursaries that come through that you might be considered if you're in the category of a needy student. There's always, information and communication coming out of your country. So it's always good to go for those, forums where people meet with their local embassies. And number 3, it's just a good backup. If anything was to happen to you, the Kenyan government can, with authority, say that yes, Grace went abroad, she went to study, we have her registered, these are her contacts. And we know that she is our student, she's a Kenyan national. So it's just always good to register with the local embassy, whether you're going for work or whether you're going for leisure or whether you're going for for education purposes. It's just good to have that as a backup. So number 10 is making sure that you have the local currency of the country that you're going to. If you have dollars, you might want to, have something exchanged in Kenya shillings when you're coming to Kenya. If you're traveling from Kenya to another foreign country, you might want, have Canadian dollars or Australian dollars, so that you have some little currency to start off things like, like I said, you want to take a taxi, you want to buy some food, before you exchange maybe, or you use your card. It's just good to have cash, because sometimes even in the country where you're going to, the locals might not have the facility of using cards, and maybe you've already eaten, you want to pay, and the card, they don't have a machine to run the card. What do? It's good to always have a backup, to have some money with you in their local currency. So those are the 10 things that you should do, or you should prepare for when you're going abroad, so that you're not caught off guard. I'll just repeat them so that for those who've not probably listened to the full video can have this at the back of their minds. Is number 1 is security. Number 2 is making sure your travel documents and work permits are correct. Number 3, having the vaccine and injections in place. Then you have the certificates to show that. Number 4 is having contacts of the place where you're going to. If you're going to homestay, you need to have, the contacts of the people picking you up. The local language of the place where you're going to. What language do they speak? Do you know that foreign language? Do you want to take classes? It just depends. But having at least some basics known with you. The number 6 is the culture of the locals. How do they dress? How do they eat? How do they communicate? Number 7 is emergency contacts of your family and yourself, so that in case something happens to you, they can be able to reach out to you, or they can be able to follow up if they're not able to travel to that country. The number 8 is the dress code. How do those people dress? What is the norm? Even if it is in a hot country or a cold country, what is the norm of dressing when people go out? What is the norm of dressing when people go to the office? Then number 9 is your local embassy contacts. Make sure you're registering with your local embassy as soon as you go to that country. You don't necessarily have to go in person, but you can write an email making sure that they're aware you're in the country. And lastly, making sure that you have the local currency of the country that you're going to, so that in case you need to use money, you have something at hand to cover that space between, having your card. Maybe they might not have machines ready. So I'm excited for this topic. I know COVID is lightening up in many countries. People want to start traveling back for work or traveling for leisure. These are the things you might want to consider that will help you to be prepared. Thank you for watching my video. I hope it was helpful. I'd love to hear from you. Make sure you're giving me a thumbs up, writing your comments, subscribing, sharing with your friends, so that we are in this together. Thank you, and let's meet in the next video.